Well, hello, friends. Hey, if it sounds like I am all smiles, or if you can see it, if you're watching on YouTube, it is because I am all smiles. I just finished participating in two amazing book clubs that I'm doing this summer with a handful of amazing kiddos. And by the way, if you do need a good book study unit, a novel unit, maybe you'll think about doing it in the fall. Two books that I highly recommend: Summer of the Monkeys by Wilson Rolls and The Great Turkey Walk by Kathleen Carr. And we're doing two book clubs, one on each of those books. These are great options, and I will tell you that these authors really know how to develop their characters and their story plots. They toss in humorous dialogue. There's a lot of adventure, like laugh out loud adventure. Plus, the topics tie into American history and other things. Today we got into a deep discussion regarding hydrophobia. Do you know what that is? Hydrophobia, otherwise known as rabies. I just have so much fun with these kids, and I love book clubs. Doing a book club really, or any kind of a novel unit, allows you to dissect how an author, a professional author, writes. This really can help students connect to their own writing. That's one of the things we always talk about, like notice how she did this or how he did that. And remember to do that the next time you write a narrative. We can just learn so much from seeing how these more seasoned authors, how these experienced writers write. So just be sure to do really great novel units. Let me know if you need ideas or help with that. Really happy to do that. We have Wow Writers Clubhouse. It's a writing program that we offer twice a year. So we have a fall semester and we have a spring semester. And I love our writing program so much. It's the greatest thing I've created. I love it so much. So we always provide a teacher example anytime we're teaching how to write an essay. And many parents and students have said that that's really helpful. I understand that. It does help a lot. I mean, think of some time, maybe recently, when you learned something new. I have a few friends who are taking on riding electric bikes, e-bikes, and it's just so much better to do this, to ride one, when you're with somebody who's already ridden one, or maybe they already own some. So they're like, hey, come on, let's go ride. Let me show you how. It's just easier when somebody can show you the ropes. And of course, there are going to be people who are going to just not even want anything to do with those e-bikes, right? They're going to put their foot down and proclaim they would never ride an electric bike. Are you kidding? Those aren't even real bikes. Bikes are meant to be pedaled, right? Do you know people like this? I do too. However, if you tuned in last week, in that episode, I think it was episode 45, you already know that I do believe that lying and cheating are sometimes great options, and they do have a place in our lives. And I will tell you that if cheating a big hill with a motor is something you want to do, why not? It opens up new roads and top of the world places to see, because you can get there. So again, it's all in our perspective. But if you also listened in last week, you may recall that I lightly brushed over the ChatGPT topic, but at the end, I promised to come back to it because it needs an episode all of its own. And here we are. So we're going to talk about this. A couple of years ago, I had a very sweet friend, still a sweet friend, who asked if I was concerned about my writing business plunging now that ChatGPT was entering the arena. And I looked at her and was like, what's ChatGPT? That was the first time I'd really heard about it. I guess I'd heard a tiny little couple things, but I just didn't really understand its significance. I think now, a couple years later, we are fairly familiar with this new technology, but just in case you're not, in a nutshell, ChatGPT, which stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer, is technology that will create human-like responses to prompts that you type in or questions that you ask in a message box on this site, and you will very quickly get information and answers to those prompts and questions based on all of the internet information that has been collected now for decades. So for an example, you can go to chatgpt.com. You just go, it's free. And you can ask a question. You will receive a very thorough response, like within seconds. If you've not done this, you really should. It's very entertaining and amazing. But I will say this, and this is true of everything. So I just want to bring us back to remembering life is 50-50. You never reach an age where you're like, oh, I did it. I got through all the terrible things in life. I will only be happy from this day forward. Nope, that's not life. Life is half fantastic and half heartbreaking. It's 50-50. People, human beings, we're 50-50. Half the time I'm kind and considerate and patient. And half the time I'm short-tempered and frustrated. It's just how we're designed. It's how life is designed. It's 50-50. So should you be surprised to hear that ChatGPT, it's 50-50. It's awesome. And it's terrible. It's like everything else. So my friend showed me, we went on to chatgpt.com, and she put in something like, write a 5-paragraph essay depicting the 3 biggest impacts the Civil War had on the United States. And I will tell you, I mean, I didn't time it. It went too fast. But in under, 10 to 15 seconds, the essay was done. And it was good. It had a thesis. It had a hook. It was grammatically correct. It answered the prompt. And so there you have it. It could write an essay in no time at all. So no more need to teach writing any longer, right? Wrong. I disagree. So now I will be extremely transparent with you. When I saw that, my heart skipped a beat. My stomach dropped. I was like, oh, I'm being made obsolete. Oh no, there's not going to be any need for a writing teacher anymore. Of course, my mind did that. But I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and figuring out how I feel about this and how I want to teach this to my students, because I do see it's 50-50. So if it's 50% scary, it's also 50% amazing. So back in my day, I always feel like I sound so ancient on this podcast because I start many sentences with those words. Back in my day, though, we only had libraries. I didn't get assigned a lot of essays. That's the other thing. I didn't write a lot of essays because everybody knew you had to go to a library to do research. So you might have to write an essay a semester, maybe an essay a year. And we did. We had to and if we were all on the same topic, then we were all checking out the same books. This was an issue. Unless, of course, you were lucky enough to have a set of the World Book encyclopedias. Lucky. We didn't have that. But I was so jealous of my friends who had the whole alphabetical set. And I will tell you, my essay writing at that point in my life was pretty sophomoric, right? It was so simple because of the lack of technological tools that I had. Now, along comes Google. And Google changed the world. And a lot of people were afraid of Google too. They're like, oh my goodness, so many things are going to become obsolete because of Google. And I'm sure many things have, but it's also opened our world in a lot of ways. With technological advancement, it's that information is now easier to access, and that's great. I will tell you, writing has also improved because of this. I mean, parents regularly comment. They'll email me, they'll talk to me, they'll tell me that their children are far better writers than they ever were at that age, maybe than they ever were, period. And why is that? Well, with these years and decades, more knowledge, better information, advancement allows for this, and that's good. And ChatGPT is just the next example of advancement. And yes, I do believe it has a place in our lives. It would actually be really silly of me to say that it doesn't, because I stopped fighting with reality years ago when it was pointed out to me, reality will always win. To say, I don't believe ChatGPT should exist, it does exist. So it's silly for me to say that it shouldn't when obviously it does. Therefore, I need to learn about it and I need to figure out how it fits. So I want you to kind of keep that in mind. I do believe it has its place. I think that parents and teachers like us, we need to evolve as it evolves. We want to have our hands in it, even though it may feel a little uncomfortable and it may feel a little bit messy. But I'm not about to throw in the towel. I'm not giving up my business, because human interaction cannot, at this point, be replaced with AI, artificial intelligence. This is all examples of artificial intelligence. So I'm not going to throw in the towel. I don't want you to either. It is now time to teach in new and innovative ways. And I'm going to share one thing that I did that I recommend you do in this next school year, in this next teaching time period, whenever you're listening to this. So one thing that I did with my students, I wanted to introduce ChatGPT with great intention. So we were doing an assignment on how to write a sonnet. Now, sonnets are considered one of, if not the oldest form of poetry. We talked about the history of that, and we went back and learned about the different kinds of sonnets and landed on the Shakespearean sonnet. We learned about the stanzas, meter, rhyme, topics, number of stanzas versus a couplet at the end. Then I had my students write one. And I showed them with my teacher example, this is how it might look. And we picked silly topics. Then I pulled in the parents and I let them know ahead of time what I was up to. And I'm like, I want to introduce ChatGPT. This is what I'm thinking. Are you in? And they were all in. All of them were like 100%. They're like, yes, this would be great. This would be great. So the next time we had our class, I introduced, it was a Zoom meeting. All of our things are digital and online. So we jumped online and I was sharing my screen and I said, I want to introduce you to ChatGPT. Who's heard of it? And at that point, this was a year and a half ago. At that point, very few people had heard of it. It's come a long way. Most people know of it now. But I showed the kids, I said, this is ChatGPT. And how it works is I can tell it to do something, like write something for me, and it's going to write it in a really fast amount of time. Do you guys want to see how it works? And the kids were like, yes, totally want to see it. So I took my sonnet example, which I believe my topic was tiny marshmallows. And I asked ChatGPT to write a sonnet on the topic of tiny marshmallows. And it did in like under 3 seconds. The kids, like their mouths were open. I could see on their video screens. They were like, what? And I go, okay, let's read it. Who wants to read the first stanza? Who wants to read the second stanza? Who wants to read the third? Who's going to read the couplet? Okay, so we read it together. And the kids were amazing. They noticed it wasn't perfect. The rhyming pattern was off in one of the stanzas. They replicated the syllable, the rhyming count, and the sonnet didn't end with the couplet like the Shakespearean was supposed to. It ended just with another stanza. So that's 2 lines versus 4 lines. The bottom line is the kids were really critical. And they're like, they didn't do it right, Mrs. Webb. And I said, you're right. It's not right. But let me tell you how I'm feeling right now. I just gave it my assignment and that's not mine. I told them I didn't like that it wasn't mine because I was really proud of the one that I wrote. So we had a little discussion about that, originality versus plagiarism. And you can't really call it plagiarism because ChatGPT pulled from all these things and created something that hadn't been created. That's where it's kind of this fuzzy line. It's not super clear, black and white. It's a little gray, but the fact was I didn't write it. I didn't create it. And if the assignment was that I was supposed to create it and I didn't create it, was it cheating? We all agreed that could be considered cheating if you are secretly breaking the rules to get out of having to do the work yourself. We also discussed how students could use this tool to get the job done, but they would have also missed out on learning about the history. Like we talked about all the things we learned, and we read other Shakespearean sonnets. There's a lot that they would have missed out on if all they did was just have a computer do their work for them, right? Just throw it into a homework machine, click a button, and out it comes. So that was something to consider. I then gave them an assignment, and I asked them to each go to ChatGPT. I already said I told your parents that I was going to ask this, and I want you to have ChatGPT write a sonnet on your topic. And I told them it's not cheating because I'm asking you to try it. Okay? So again, having that conversation about what's cheating, what's not. Then I said, you get to submit the sonnet you like best. The only thing I asked, I had a couple of rules here. I said, number one, if you want to take ChatGPT's sonnet because you like that one better, when you turn it in, when you turn in your assignment, because we hadn't turned these in yet, when you turn in your assignment, I want it to say ChatGPT at the top and your name underneath. So I know you're giving full credit to the fact that ChatGPT gets to go first because ChatGPT did all the work. You typed it in. You came up with the topic idea, so I want your name on there under that. And then the date and the style and, all the things we do with our MLA headings. Okay. I said, as well, I'm going to give you a second option. You can use it just as a tool. Not the homework machine where it just does everything for you, but I want you to read the one it comes up with. And if there's a line that ChatGPT came up that you liked better, or maybe a word choice, or a rhyme that you just thought was really clever, you can substitute that into your original piece, as long as the original piece is still 90% your work. And I will tell you this, not one student took the full ChatGPT sonnet and turned it in over their own. Now, some did take pieces. And what they said is they felt like when they looked at it that way, it was a tool that helped their writing be better. And that's where I think we need to land. It's our job as the parents and as our children's teachers to teach them the ethical and responsible things to do, but we still must teach them how to think for themselves, think critically, think creatively. The reality is we're human beings. We have a unique voice. We have our own unique style and take on things. So we want to help our children uncover their unique voice and style and take on things. We don't want to just give the world over to the computers. Originality is what we want. And originality is a beautiful thing. Plagiarism, letting machines take the credit, that's not so beautiful. Helpful, yes. Beautiful, no. Technology is a tool, and that's what we want to remember. I will tell you, I will opt for the power drill screwdriver that my husband has out in the garage over that standard handheld form almost any day of the week. I love a good tool, but we want to use our tools wisely, and that includes tools like ChatGPT. So I'm going to wrap this up just reminding you to keep fostering the creativity in your kiddos. Embrace their personal expression. Care about what your children have to say. That's how I feel as a writing teacher. I want to know them as the individual that they are. And let me tell you this, no AI can applaud a child's effort the way we can as human beings. Writing is such a personal form of expression, and it is best when expressed in person and shared with others, with people who appreciate the words and the thoughts that a human being can come up with all on their own. And that's what we want to remember. Right on.